Let's pay respect to Luang Por by making 3 bows.
So our last meeting, last feels different than first, and body awareness is the same. That was the theme that I've been encouraging. So I had a chance to look at a monastery. Brother Xu Hong took me around in a buggy. You might have seen me. We don't have a buggy in the monastery. We have a tractor. And I've never seen a place like this before. It's just astounding, the amount of art and the depth of culture that you have from the Chinese tradition, the Mahayana tradition. And of course I don't understand 95% of the imagery. It's all new to me. So I kept asking, what is this about and what is that about? And so I could, let's say if I were to study now all the imagery, what it means, its historical significance, its symbolic significance, its iconic significance, the different periods of, because there's a temple down the road with green roofs, right? So why green roofs? Why terracotta colored or yellow, orange roofs? So I could study probably for many years all the art here and iconography and have knowledge. So I would have knowledge about this place and its traditions, but knowledge is not wisdom, is it? So I'd know about Mahayana Buddhism in some way, but to actually understand Mahayana Buddhism, I'd have to have a teacher, take up some practices, and actually do them for 10 years. And then I might have some insight and understand what Mahayana Buddhism is as a spiritual practice. And I think that's important in inter-tradition dialogues and interfaith dialogues, that I don't think you can really know what a tradition is about until you've practiced it with a competent teacher. So also say with Theravada Buddhism, people can read the concepts and such like, or understand which mudras represent which mind states. And you have Abhaya mudra, or you have the Dhammacakkappavattana mudra, and so on. But that would still be knowledge. But then to take the Dhammacakka Sutta from that teaching and then to go deeply into it is a whole different affair. And that's the life of contemplation, the life of meditation. And that's what we're doing here. So we're not studying knowledge, but we have a bit of knowledge, and we're trying to deepen that, to take that knowledge deeply so that we liberate the heart from suffering. And that's what I've been trying to do here. So I realized that, if people didn't have a good grounding in some of the Four Noble Truths or whatever like that, they might feel confused at what I said, so my apologies there. But there is a place for study, and there is a place for getting your mental frameworks well in order, because that alleviates some of the conceptual doubts which we might have. But I don't really teach that way. I kind of expect and hope that people have a grounding, and I'm not very good in that kind of teaching. But my early years of monasticism, or even before I became a monk, reading, trying to get my head around dependent origination and how that fits into right view, and how that fits in, why anicca dukkha anatta, why the khandhas, why the barami, precepts, dana, all those different seemingly dispersed ideas I had to work on until I think I had a sense of the oneness of the teaching, that it is a whole. It's not, it is like a good car where all, the gears and the tires and the transmission and all that fit nicely together. And that's a good exercise and study, but I guess you have to be careful not to just keep studying and studying and studying. So then you have to kind of drive the vehicle, which is what we're doing. So I leave that to you. You're probably all very well versed in these things. So this simple example of the last day is a perception. It's conditioned by yesterday. It's conditioned by the first day. The last day was conditioned the first day at work. You can see that there's a natural flow of life which is dependently originated. Paticca samuppada, it depends. And the first monk I met, he asked me, what do you think, which word do you think the Buddha used the most? I said, I forget what I said, but he said probably used, it depends. That's a very Buddhist idea. It's not a Buddhist, it's a human idea. It depends. So how do you feel? Well, it depends on various kind of factors. What will tomorrow be like? Well, it depends. Now, what doesn't depend? And that's what I've been trying to point to. What is not dependently originated. So dependent origination is that sankharas are constructs, and they depend on other constructs, and they in turn determine future other constructs. So the lighting in this room, just the light is a sankhara, it's constructed. It depends on the electricity. The electricity depends on lightning not whacking it out. And then the sankhara of light conditions my seeing. My seeing depends on my eyeballs, etc., etc., etc. So this is the idea of sankhara. Sankhara is a construct which depends on other constructs, and it in turn determines other constructs. Okay, so that's the broadest word I suppose we have in terms of the conditioned existence that we live in, and in the world of sankharas, we go back into, we've never really left, and there we use the sense of personality. So I am Viradhammo, I am a monk, I live in Canada, I'll be visiting Malaysia, etc., etc. I have a passport. So it's not that we don't use the sense of personality, because it is relevant. There is an individual kamma, there's individual responsibility. So that's the realm of dana, sila, as I've been saying, social responsibility, social justice, responsibility to the environment and to our parents and all of that. So I'm not, in this retreat, I'm not addressing that. What I'm talking about is the other way of talking about Buddhism, is to see our experience as a witnessing our experience as a flow of events, sense events, and that's where we use the language of the five khandhas, the six ayatanas. We use a different kind of language, and that's where the language of anatta, anicca dukkha anatta comes into play. You don't use anatta for sila. The joke we have is, I talk about anatta, you kick me in the shin, I say that hurts. He says it's not self. It's not going to compute. So if you get that wrong, Buddhism can sound terribly silly. Well, there's no one here. It doesn't really matter. That's kind of kindergarten Buddhism. There is someone here, and it does matter. So we're trying to, in Buddhism, we're trying to find goodness in our social realities, and we're trying to cultivate goodness in the sense of our social responsibilities, and that's hugely important for a heart which is happy. A life lived immorally or heedlessly is not a life that has much meaning, and it has a lot of regret and remorse. We know all that. That's self-evident. But also, even though we might live a good life, the inner world is still something that might not be free from suffering and isn't free from suffering, and that's when we use a different language. So we talk about the 5 khandhas. I just like to talk about flow of consciousness. I just kind of make it really, really simple. So that includes memories and bodily feelings, and the tactile feeling of the floor, and the taste of coffee, and the sound of the guys outside, and memories of my mother, and toothache, and so on. It's everything. It's basically all of experience. So then we say that, and one of the mistakes people make in Buddhism is that everything changes. I sometimes do a trick on that. I kind of think, does Buddhism say everything changes? And some people, wait a minute, this is a trick. The teaching says that which has a nature to arise has a nature to cease. All experience has a nature to arise, has a nature to cease. That's different than saying everything changes, because we have the unchanging. We have the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unborn. Sometimes we say, it's all dukkha. That's really not quite accurate, because that which has a nature to arise has a nature to cease, and is unsatisfactory. Now that word unsatisfactory, dukkha, in this sense, is to me pointing to that the realm of sankharas, the realm of conditionality, you won't find the unconditioned in it. Simply that. It's not that if you have a pleasant experience, that it's unpleasant. That's not what it's saying. That's not the idea of dukkha. So the dukkha is used in several ways, as you probably know. There's dukkha vedana. So the feeling of sense contact can be pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, in a kind of spectrum or range of possibilities. That's a given. That's just part of being a sense being. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't eat food. Food tastes pleasant, so we eat it. We wouldn't feel pain, and there'd be a broken bone, and we couldn't do anything about it. So pain and pleasure are just natural phenomena. So that's one way we use dukkha vedana. And then also dukkha satcha, that the noble truth of suffering refers to something different, and that would be the mental, the inner suffering that I create around an unpleasant experience, maybe. So I have an unpleasant experience, like let's say I was saying at William and Karina's place right now, 3 doors down, they're renovating one of the row houses, and concrete carries sound, so they're using Kango hammers to lift up the tile floors, and it's very, very noisy. So around 110, it goes really, really loud. So that to me would be dukkha vedana. It's an unpleasant sound, as opposed to the silence. But then what I do about it, how I react to it, is about when we talk about the Four Noble Truths. So then if I say, why don't they stop, and it's terrible, and I put on my earphones and I get uptight about it, that's what we mean by the dukkha of the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering. Then I can awaken to that and say, why am I suffering? Well, because it's noisy. No, because I don't want it to be noisy. So then we come to tanha. And then dukkha is also alakkhana. Dukkha lakkhana is in the teaching of anicca dukkha anatta. And that is really, to me, about the teaching which is pointing to nibbana. Because nibbana is not unsatisfactory, it is satisfactory. It is, even the it is word is troublesome. But so we say that everything that arises and ceases is dukkha lakkhana. It's not dukkha vedana, if you get what I mean. Right? So something pleasant is unsatisfactory in the sense it will change. Don't rely on it. It's not the unconditioned. You can certainly enjoy it, no problem. But when it changes and you suffer, that's your problem, because it's changing according to nature. It's its natural change. So what I really tend to talk about is about dukkha lakkhana mostly. In when I say going out to objects is fine, but your real home is not an object, because all objects, in this case, all our sense experience, is dukkha lakkhana. That's its characteristics. And in that sense, all sense experience, that which arises and ceases, is sankhata. It's constructed. Each moment that through our senses and through our memories and minds is constructed by history, by the equipment we are in, and so on and so forth. So there is a word called asankhata, something that is not constructed, not built up, not made. And that is one way we talk about the realization of nibbana. But again, nibbana is a corrupted word. I don't like to use that because it sounds like a place in Florida or something. So I tend to shy away from that. And so the words I really like is asankhata, unconstructed, or unborn, or uncreated. I also like harbor, peace. Those words are very, very appealing to me. Again, it's just language, but language has importance. So if I ponder that, and this is the way I contemplate, and I've been doing this a long time, but then the Buddha is saying there is the unconstructed or the uncreated. Everything I look through the senses is created. And that's the idea of anicca. It's not independent, or dependent origination. It is something that depends on other things. So then I go back into my experience. So what does not depend on the senses, or on memory, or on time? And all I'm left with is awareness. It's the only conclusion I can come to, or presence, or consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. So that was important for me in turn. I was saying how I needed to make this whole teaching a piece. I had to get it. I had to figure out why does the Buddha use these different kind of teachings? What's he trying to tell us? And I always referred back to the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unborn. And then it all fits. The reason, like craving. Why is craving a problem? Well, craving is a problem because it creates tension and so on. But also, craving is that which is going out into objects, and that very going out. If I don't realize it's a limited possibility, I can do it, but it's a limited possibility. And I'm interested in spiritual realization. I'm not just a materialist. Then I realized that's why we emphasize so much on craving, because craving is like Vedana, pleasant, unpleasant, and the wanting and the holding is the hook. You know, that's where we're always operating in the world of samsara. So take a break from that, and just know pleasant is unpleasant, and pleasant is pleasant, and unpleasant is unpleasant. And just know it that way, and that's the sense of non-attachment. And then craving comes up. Oh, craving feels this way. Non-attachment. Craving ceases. Craving arises. Craving ceases, and there's the knowing. There's the knowing. And then as craving begins to cease in various ways, then what do you have? You have a mind which is peaceful, a mind which is available, and that peaceful availability then opens to I think the deepest possibilities of the unconditioned. If you take dependent origination, what's that about? Well, it seems it's about it's about sankharas, and the sankharas are constructed, I don't think you need to get a PhD on that. I mean, you can. I'm not against PhDs, but as a contemplative, all you really need to understand is it's constructed. Don't go there. Just don't pick it up. If your aspiration is for I would say for that kind of realization, then you can take knowledge and broaden that, but to constantly study these different forms, what are they for to me? Why do I pick up this teaching? So I have more and more knowledge? Or for me, no, I need enough knowledge that I can pick up and use, have some good tools to realize the unconditioned, to realize the deathless, to realize the unconstructed. So for me, and then if you look at the paramitas, patience, compassion, determination, honesty, they're not about ego. They're not about me becoming some kind of a super monk. They're about character. But not just character in a cultural sense, character which lays the foundation for freedom from attachment to the sankharas. And you can take any teachings and they all make sense to me if I refer them back to the Buddha's own realization. So again, I put that to you. You have your own study and your own ways of thinking about this. Does the teaching, does it make sense as a piece? Or is it like disparate teachings which don't really, you can't connect them? And I found this exercise helpful, and then if I connect it to the Buddha's realization, then it all makes sense to me. And that helped a lot with kind of intellectual doubt that I had in the beginning. And I had to struggle and get my head around these difficult concepts until it became much more natural. So I would recommend a really good working knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. And the way I was trained in terms of study was to take one of these lists that we have. I've forgotten a lot of them now, but to take one of those lists and memorize it. So the most simple list is to memorize the Four Noble Truths, and maybe Tanha within that, and then Noble Eightfold Path. Most of us have memorized that. And maybe just take one, like Samudaya, that the cause of suffering is attachment to craving, and read that every morning. You can, because as a piece of knowledge, it's like you read it for 10 minutes, okay, I've got it, what's next? But as a piece of wisdom, a craving, an attachment to craving is really, really profound. So what I found very helpful is I would just read, I had a little book that Lopar Sumedho recommended, The Word of the Buddha, and it was just a short quotations from the texts on the Four Noble Truths, and I would just read it every morning. Just read it every morning. Not because I was looking for knowledge. I already had the knowledge, just so I reminded myself of say in this case, the cause of suffering. So then as I was resisting something or whatever, the voice of my morning reading would kind of remind me, no, it's about craving. Where is craving here? And I found that mode of study much more rewarding than kind of encyclopedic study. And it's the study of the contemplative. Contemplative reading is not information reading. William and Karina just gave me a book on a history of China. Fortunately, it's a short history, amazing history. And so I just went through 3 philosophers and so on. So, if you asked me in 2 months' time, I would have forgotten. My mind's not so good. So that's knowledge, and that's fun. But here, the contemplative's craft, I would say, is taking some piece of the teaching and then reviewing it again and again and again, so that it begins to just come up into consciousness as you're living your ordinary life. And I found that really, really profitable, very, very helpful. So we'll as monastics, we'll memorize the the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Four Noble Truths. We'll memorize that, and we'll chant it, and then it takes a long time to memorize it for me, but then it'll just start to come up into your mind. And then what's that one? So you start to put information into your consciousness, which isn't just about sensuality or about politics or about economics. You put Dharma information in a way that becomes much stronger than just reading a passage and then going to the next passage and next passage. Some of the Dhamma books we have, they're very profound. And I think you all know, you can work on a page for a week or two. You don't really need to get it all. And that's what contemplative reading is about. It's reading which pauses. You read a couple of paragraphs, you think, what am I trying to understand here? Where's that pointing to? And so the sense of understanding Dhamma is encouraged in the mind through the intellect. We're not dismissing intellect, but it goes deeper than thought. It goes into this capacity of what we call Dhamma Vijaya. Dhamma Vijaya is the investigation of truth. And that's not knowledge. That's like if I'm getting uptight about something and I'm not understanding it, it's not because I don't have the knowledge about suffering, it's because I don't understand my mind in that situation of why I'm getting uptight. So that's what I would, encourage. I would encourage myself and everyone else. And obviously I love these ideas of the unconditioned, so I always go back to those ideas. But there's all kinds of other things that are taught. You can contemplate the 10 paramitas for a year. That's very powerful teaching. So there's a lot that one could contemplate. So I think let's do some meditation before we. It's at 3:15, correct? Right. So let's just do a bit of sitting, and then we'll close up. Brother Si Hong, thank you so much. You've been very kind to us, and all the folk here. It's a magnificent place you have, and to welcome me from another tradition with such kindness in all of us. Shall we say sadhu 3 times? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Maybe you can come to Canada. I'll take you canoeing. Thank you, yeah. So, how should we do this?
So Luang Por, we have now come to the end of a 5-day retreat. It is also traditional for us to ask for forgiveness, whether it's been through the body, speech, or mind, whether we've been skillful or unskillful towards you, towards the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. We ask for forgiveness. So we're going to be performing a asking for forgiveness ceremony from here. And after the asking of forgiveness ceremony, we would request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts from Luang Por. And thereafter, we would also be chanting the verses of sharing and aspiration in English. And then we would take a group photograph and then invite everyone who has got requisites to come forward and offer the requisites. Would that be all right, Luang Por?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Right, so brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, It is now time for us to ask for forgiveness from the teacher who has so graciously and generously and kindly offered us his time. What we will do is that for those who are new to this tradition, you will follow. For those who are not new to the tradition, you know what we should do. And asking for forgiveness chant, the formal request is actually on the printed book, which is a soft copy of the printed book, on page 8. We will first invite representatives of the two partnering organizations, Komeng San, as well as the Viradhammo Foundation, who represent the congregation, to be presenting a token flowers to Luang Por. All right, and then as we chant, we keep our body low as we ask for forgiveness, and then only after Luang Por has given his blessings, then we raise up our body. Okay, all right. So I would like to first invite Brother Tony to represent the Viradhammo Foundation, and Brother Zhi Hong from Komeng San to go forward. Brother Tony, I need you, please. So if you'd like to know which chant we are doing, is actually on page 8 on this printed copy. So that particular booklet, it does not contain the request for forgiveness. Okay, so if we can all be in our angelic position. Okay, in angelic position first, we'll bow 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, you can follow me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Let us all now bow low or keep our body in a low position and chant together. Mahatevi pamadena dvaratayena katam sabang aparadam kamatunubanti. Mahatevi pamadena dvaratayena katam sabang aparadam kamatunubanti. Mahatevi pamadena dvaratayena katam sabang aparadam kamatunubanti. Please remain bowed whilst the representatives present the token to Luang Por.
Ahang kamami tume hipime kamitapang.
Kamama bemante.
Bhavatu sabha mangalang rakantu sabha devata sabha buddha sabha dhamma sabha sankhanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. May you be well and happy. May you realize nibbana. May you live in health and good prosperity. May your families be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us all now do 3 bows to offer thanks. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Thank you. So now we'll proceed to take the 3 refuges and 5 precepts. As many of us has taken 8 precepts from day 1, so now we'll now formally request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts from Luang Por. With the softer book, it starts on page 2. With the hard book, it starts from 155. Okay, all right. First, bow 3 times. Okay, we'll chant together. Mayam Bante Tisarena Saha Pancha Sila Niyachama Dutiyampi Mayam Bante Tisarena Saha Pancha Sila Niyachama Tatiyampi Mayam Bante Tisarena Saha Pancha Sila Niyachama.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tisaranagamanaṃ nititang.
Amabante.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinādana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinādana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kamesu miccāchāra veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kamesu miccāchāra veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya majjapamadatāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya majjapamadatāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Imani pancha sikkhapadani silena sukhating yanti silena bhoga sampada silena niputing yanti tasama silang visotaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Paul will now request to chant the verses of sharing and aspiration in English.
You want to lead that?
Okay. So we'll do this together in English. The soft book is on page 45. The hard book is on page 30. As we reflect and recollect on 5 days that we spent here with Luang Por, as well as in this beautiful monastery of Kwang San, may we also make an aspiration to continue in our determination of this practice and take the opportunity to call upon the Devas and the Dharma protectors of the 10 directions who have watched over us, provided us, as well as given us the gift of opportunity for this platform and this practice. And as we do this, so we also ask for forgiveness from anyone or any being that we've hurt through our unskillful means, body, speech, or mind in the last 5 days of our practice. That we continue to have the good fortune and the good opportunities to be pursuing on this path and to have the opportunity with good teachers and with the good Sangha community and support to nourish us in this practice. So as we do this, let us all now chant the sharing of aspiration, verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge, and surpasses the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Okay, so before we invite everybody to come forward to do a group photograph, I thought it might be suitable if we all can turn around to people on our left, right, and behind us, and to say 3 sadhus, and ask for forgiveness for any, unskillful means or unskillful ways that we may have caused hurt to people around us, because they have been conditions of support and conducive for us in the last 5 days.
Sorry.
Okay, and I'd like to also, on behalf of Buddha Dharma Foundation and everybody here, express our anumodana and sadhu to the Kwang San team, led by Zhi Hong, Leslie, and Ikim and Miss Lim, for all that they've done for us, the generosity, in the provision of this beautiful temple, their support, the volunteers that they put forth, to care for every bits and pieces. I may not be here physically during the time, but actually I get to know what's happening here. So I know that they've extended a lot, they've bent backwards a lot in support of our practice. So I'd like us all, when we see them, to please thank them. But Zhi Hong, Yi Kim, Miss Lim, Leslie, and all the volunteers, sadhu to you. Sadhu. Okay, and also I'd like to also extend our anumodana and thank you to the beautiful couple, Brother William and Sister Karina, for having looked after Lumpur so kindly and with their hospitable, hospitality to Lumpur. Lumpur can be kept in good health, and then also transporting Lumpur to and fro. So thank you, Brother. Brother Go, of course, Brother Go, very capable memory shooter. He captures all your beautiful memories. So thank you very much, Brother Go. Although his wife isn't well, it's in the hospital, he's got permission from his wife to still be here with us. So let us also offer, whatever merits that will accrue to the speedy recovery of Sister Ailan, Brother Go's wife. So. And most importantly, I think we all must bring to mind the Abbot Venerable Guangshen of Kuan San Monastery. Without his kindness and his generosity, we would not be able to enjoy this conducive environment. Let us also offer our anumodana to Abbot Venerable Guangshen, that he be kept in good health, and the Sangha community here be kept in good health and support when we continue to extend our support to this beautiful temple, such that we can all enjoy this as well as it can benefit many all generations to come. Okay, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So last but not least, to every one of you, my anumodana and sadhu to you. And to those who have come from very far, some have traveled from very far to be here with us. They're not locals. But I also would like to comment about your effort. Lumpur has said to me many times that he's very impressed, very, very impressed with this group and this practice. So thank you for your dedication and your devotion. May you continue to strive on this journey and the path towards deathless.
For hanging out with me. Thank you for hanging out with me, as we say in North America. I always learn a lot actually when I teach, because I'm always, a teacher has to. I'm going to start teaching again. My first monk told me, the first bhikkhu I met said, if you can't write it, you don't know it. My take on that is if I can't speak it, I don't know it. So teaching has always been a very edifying, a very educational challenge for me to say, what do I really mean by this, or what have I realized, and how can I express it? So it's actually teaching is a very creative exercise for me. So I'm very glad you're very patient in listening to me and all that. So let me chant a blessing and wish you well. Yata varivaha pura paripurenti sakarang evameva itodinang petanang upakapati ichitang patitang tumhang kipameva samichatu sebe purentu sankapa chanto panaraso yata manicho tiraso yata sabitiyo vivachanto sabarogo vinasato Mate bhavantvantaraya sukhiti gayuko bhava abhivadana sirisa nichang vuda pachayino chataro dhamma vadanti ayuvanno sukhang palang bhuvatu sabha mangalang rakantu sabha devata
Sabha Buddhani Bhavena Sada Soti Bhavanti Te Bhavatu Sabha Mangalang Rakantu Sabha Devata Sabha Dhammani Bhavena Sada Soti Bhavanti Te Bhavatu Sabha Mangalang Rakantu Sabha Devata Sabha Sankani Bhavena Sada Soti Bhavanti Te. If anyone is in Ontario near Ottawa, please come visit. Okay, bye-bye.